Hello and welcome to yet another video on the Delhi Defense Review YouTube channel. With the general budget up next week, it's a good time to take a look at the defense budget over the past few years. The total defense budget was around 4,71,000 crores for the year 2021, which is 15.5% of the total central government expenditure and 2.1% of the GDP for the same year. Capital budget for 2019-20 was approximately 28.71% of the total capital expenditure of the central government expenditure. On the basis of the Kargil Committee report and recommendations of the group of ministers, an acquisition wing, a specialist organization, was created, which not only monitors capital expenditure but also looks at all capital acquisition projects from inception to finality. Also, a defense procurement board is chaired by the defense secretary, and the defense acquisition council is headed by comprising all stakeholders to monitor defense procurement. The ministry then put forth requirements to the Ministry of Finance for favorable consideration, who in turn would analyze past absorption capacity of the services and the pace of expenditure in the current financial year. The Ministry of Defense then distributes funds allocated by the Ministry of Finance among all the services and organizations under its wing based on priorities and allocations for critical projects. Under revenue, provision is first made for salary and other obligatory expenses. The balance is then distributed to meet requirements of stores such as ordnance, revenue works and maintenance. When it comes to the capital segment, funds are first used to meet projected milestone-based liabilities that need to be fulfilled during that year. The remaining is then distributed for new projects. As we can see, while the total central government expenditure has risen over the years, the defense expenditure has sort of stagnated. In terms of the defense budget as part of the entire GDP, we can see that it has remained stagnant around 2.1% and hasn't really gone up despite myriad national security challenges. In the current 13th Defense 5-year plan, we can see that the projections have been higher in all 3 years, but the total allocation has been far lower than what has been projected by the services, while expenditure has outstripped the allocation. Now we know that over the past many years, the allocation towards defense has been on the lower side, while the services have been clamoring for greater funds for modernization. In this regard, it is interesting to note that the defense pensions are around 28.39% of the total budget, that is 1.3 lakh crore rupees. Defense pensions covers pensionary charges of defense personnel who have retired, including civilian employees in the defense ministry, as well as the 3 services of the Army, Navy and Air Force, and also employees of the ordnance factories. It covers payment of service pension, gratuity, family pension, disability pension, committed value of pension, leave encashment, etc. We also have to see that compared to 2019-2020, while the defense budget and the defense service estimates have shown an increase of 5 and 2% respectively, the pension has increased by a whopping 13.6%. So we kind of understand where Chief of Defense Staff General Bipin Rawat keeps harping on this point, saying defense pensions have to be brought down by some means or the other. During a hearing of the Defense Standing Committee, he said that they are hopeful that the 3 service chiefs will be able to come to a conclusion on how to ensure that the retirement age can be increased. If this happens, the pension budget will automatically go down. They're also looking at joint operations which will optimize resources and also see how certain operations that are being done by the Army today can be outsourced to private services. As we can see, after 2015-2016, with the implementation of the 7th Finance Commission, as well as rolling out of the one rank, one pension scheme, the share of the defense pensions has increased markedly from an earlier 21% in 2014-15 to the present 28.39%, a massive 7% increase. Now, when we take a look at the revenue and capital expenditure and allocation numbers for the past few years, one thing becomes very clear. The projected earlier requirement by all the 3 services is nowhere near the allocated amount as well as the expenditure amount as the years go by. In 2015-16, there was a shortfall of about 7,000 crores for the Army, a shortfall of about 4,000 crores for the Navy, about 8,000 crores for the Air Force. Now, the shortfall in 2019-20 has increased to a massive amount to nearly 40,000 crores for the Army, a good 12,000 crores for the Navy, and a good 11,000 crores for the Air Force. Now, such massive shortfalls obviously affect force planning as well as maintenance of these services. And these numbers are just for the revenue budget. In terms of the capital expenditure, the numbers are even worse. The expenditure in 2015-16 for the Army was 20,700 crores, while the actual budget projected was 31,900 crores, a shortfall of nearly 12,000 crores. In come 2019-20, the difference is even more. 44,690 crores was the budgeted number for the army, while the actual expenditure was a pitiful 19,800 crores, as you can see. When you put them all together, the numbers make for miserable reading. In 2019-20, the Army's budgeted number was 2 lakh crores, while the actual expenditure was 1.31 crores, a massive shortfall of nearly 70,000 crores. The numbers for the Air Force as well as the Navy don't make much pleasant reading either. The capital budget itself has two components. One is for capital acquisition and the other for infrastructure. The impact of such shortfalls in the capital budget put massive pressures on the services to service their committed liabilities to DPSUs, new modernization, major repairs to their infrastructure, and construction works. So in these circumstances, some planned projects are rolled over to the next year or completely abandoned due to lack of funds. In the year 2018-19, in order to meet committed liabilities of Hindustan Aeronautics, Apache helicopters, emergency power procurement, as well as critical 10I procurement, there were no additional allocations during the supplementary stage. For example, in financial year 2019-20, the Army had sought 13,978 crores in first supplementary and 8,000 odd crores at the second supplementary stage under the modernization for capital acquisitions head, to meet expenditure towards payments for HAL, etc. However, no such allocation was forthcoming. To give you a small example of what happens, for clothing, especially high altitude snow condition clothing that the army needs for equipping the soldiers in the higher reaches in the Kashmir region as well as Siachen and now the Ladakh region, contracts are signed year after year. So there is no real shortage of clothing for the soldiers who operate in these areas. And there was a large quantity of reserves held by the armed forces. However, when there is a shortfall in budget allocation, what happens is they cut down on reserves. And therefore, in a situation where they had to rush massive manpower towards the border because of our friendly northern neighbors, emergency procurement had to be done from other countries. The non-salary revenue projection of the army in 2020-2021 was around 50,600 crores, while the allocation was 35,000 odd crores, leading to a shortfall of more than 15,000 crores. The non-salary portion of the revenue budget is meant for stores maintaining war reserves, works, transportation, ex-servicemen contributory health scheme, and other grants. So when there is such a shortfall, the army has to then prioritize its allocation towards critical requirements, stores, training, and routine sustenance and maintenance of equipment and infrastructure, which are critical components of the army. It brings to question why there is such a shortfall in allocation, and obviously prompts for greater allocation towards the defense budget in total. Naturally, as we've seen in the previous numbers, the revenue to capital ratio of the army has skewed greater and greater towards the revenue side. In the present financial year, it is 83 to 17. In an ideal scenario, the ratio between revenue and capital budgets would be 60:40. However, given India's unsettled borders and an internal security environment in Jammu and Kashmir as well as the northeastern parts of India, a large standing army is inevitable. The numbers are pretty similar for the Air Force too. Compared to a revenue budget projection of 43,900 crore rupees in 2020-2021, the allocation was 29,962 crores, a shortfall of nearly 14,000 crores. This obviously affects sustenance and maintenance, training, critical 10-day procurements, and other tasks. For the capital budget again, the projection was 66,000 odd crores, while the allocation was 43,000 crores. This at a time when the Air Force is facing a critical crunch towards getting to its authorized strength of 42 squadrons of fighter aircraft, let alone other systems such as refuelers and AWACS. Even in the Air Force, there has been a steady rise in the revenue budget compared to the capital budget. In 2014-2015, the share was 8.95%, which has risen to 9.7% in 2019-2020. This has obviously affected the capital budget, which reduced from 23.67% in 2014-15 to 22.5% in 2019-20. Air Force being a primarily capital-intensive service, this is obviously alarming. The Navy had earlier been accused of not spending its allocated money. This has changed in the past few years. A quick example of this is shown in the number of submarines that were inducted in the Indian Navy in the past 15 years. Two conventional submarines, the INS Kalvari and the INS Khanderi, were inducted in 2017 and 2019. And at the same time, 3 submarines have been de-inducted. INS Vela in 2010, INS Wagli in 2010, and the unfortunate incident of the INS Sindhu Rakshak in 2013. Again, the Navy sought additional allocation 1,850 crores in the first supplementary and 9,300 crores at the second supplementary stage, and 2,600 crores in the third supplementary stage. Unlike the Army, the Navy has been able to reduce the shortage of officers to 11.2% from 21% in 2011, despite an increase in the sanctioned strength from 10,400 to 12,300 odd. The shortage in number of sailors has also been maintained despite an increase in the sanctioned strength. The capital budget projection of the Navy in 2020-2021 was 45,200 odd crores, while the allocation was 26,600 odd crores, a shortfall of nearly 18,500 crores. A major portion of the Navy's modernization budget for the year 2019-2020 had already been consumed by December 2019, with much of the procurement still in the pipeline. Such massive shortfalls across all three services has led to the prompting of many to ask for creation of a non-lapsable capital fund account with the Ministry of Finance that would ensure adequate funding for all three services. However, the Ministry of Finance has shot it down. The DRDO deals with tomorrow. The budget of defense R&D has always been around 5 to 6% of the defense budget. However, this has sadly been inadequate after allocating for expenses towards strategic schemes and allowances and other non-salary revenue expenditure, which keep growing every year. As you can see, against the projection of 23,457 crores during planning for the year 2020-2021, the Ministry of Finance has allocated 19,300 odd crores. The percentage of the budget, which is 19,300 odd crores, earmarked towards R&D expenditure is about 65%, including the implementation of strategic products, while 29% is earmarked for salary maintenance, etc. On top of the inadequate budget allocation, the sanctioned strength of the DRDO currently is around 7,353. The existing health strength as on January 2020 is 7,068. The percentage of scientists in DRDO is 30% of the total strength. Since 2001, DRDO has been functioning with this sanctioned strength, while its outlay from the 9th plan to the current 13th plan has increased nearly 6 times. In 2010, the Manpower Planning Board recommended an enhancement of manpower by 4,966. The Ministry of Finance, however, recommended 1,316 posts. Since then, the case has been pending with the CCS. So, a shortfall in budget towards the DRDO implies not just inadequate funding for the projects, it is also functioning with inadequate strength compared to the scope currently. Despite all this, DRDO has established multiple centers of excellence and scholarship schemes for girls pursuing higher education and engineering, financial support towards niche area basic research in academia and research institutes, and funding R&D in private sector companies through its Technology Development Fund. DRDO expenditure as a percentage of the total GDP has in fact plummeted over the years. In 2015-16, it was 0.098%, which has come down to 0.086% in 2021. Defense R&D is a crucial component of the progress in the country's defense and to boost indigenization efforts. Therefore, adequate funding for R&D is of utmost importance, which needs to reflect in the budget that will be presented by the Finance Minister next week. Please like this video and share it with your friends on various social media. Please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated on Indian defense programs and technologies.